This is the Wire for 1730 Zulu, March 8th, 2024. Precedence is routine. Information cutoff is 1630. Bottom line up front. State of the Union address solidifies message to the American people. On the home front, in Washington, D.C., during last night's State of the Union address, Steve Nakui, who was a guest at the event, shouted the words Abbey Gate during the part of the speech in which Biden was speaking about how all Americans deserve to be safe. Nakui was removed from Congress, arrested, and charged by law enforcement for his actions. Analyst comment. Steve Nakui is the father of Lance Corporal Kareem Nakui, United States Marine Corps, one of the 13 American service members killed by a suicide bomber at the Abbey Gate of Hamid Karzai International Airport during the U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan in 2021. Analyst comments for this wire. There are procedures in place to allow for and manage potentially disruptive actions by grieving family members at high-profile events such as this. Honor, integrity, decorum, discernment, and a host of other character traits are mandatory for those working in career fields, for example, military funeral details where these events sometimes happen, which require official personnel to continue proceedings so that the grieving family member is assisted in such a way as to keep their dignity. At absolutely no point is it acceptable in any form or fashion for a grieving parent to be put in handcuffs in front of an array of reporters' cameras, especially if that grieving family member was literally seeing himself out of the venue on his own volition after his remark. Whether intentional or not, the message delivered to the parents of fallen service members is very clear. At this point, displaying anger towards authorities responsible for the loss of a child is a badge of honor among those most directly affected by the actions of this government, and high-ranking defense officials. Not only was this message clear, but the fact that zero representatives of the people of the United States did anything or voiced any objection to this arrest as it was happening in full view of everyone is very telling. Several politicians have, in the hours after the event, issued statements of condemnation for the heavy-handed response of law enforcement, especially as none of the hundreds of demonstrators actively blocking the road to prevent the presidential motorcade from reaching the Capitol were arrested for that demonstration. The implications of this event, which should have been the spark that ignited much larger discourse, are much more wide-ranging than a simple disruptive event. The parent of a dead child directly addressing the President of the United States and being prosecuted for it is perfectly illustrative of how the dynamics between various agencies and the American people have changed. As many Americans ask themselves when the masses of employees working to harm the American people will finally see the light and stop being a part of these institutions, events like this strongly indicate that the American people likely already have their answer. Regarding the speech itself, several issues of potentially grave consequence were discussed, one of which was the concept of American involvement with humanitarian aid in Gaza, largely surrounding the implementation of amphibious logistics hubs in the region, which is worthy of more commentary than the brief notes these reports can provide. However, for posterity and in the interest of time, it would be exceedingly wise to examine the security implications of American ships being in extremely close proximity to combat actions in Gaza. Examining the means, motivations, and technical abilities of allies in the region is also paramount, as some regional power players exhibit every possible indicator of conducting false flag attacks against American resources with the goal of stopping humanitarian aid. The paradrop and amphibious delivery of humanitarian aid to Gaza are exceptionally tragic delivery mechanisms considering the port city of Tel Aviv is about 30 miles from Gaza and possesses all of the necessary cargo offloading facilities necessary for this mission. Likewise, the countless land crossings that are available but are not being used for a variety of reasons is similarly horrific. The fact that an amphibious base is not only being considered but was mentioned in the State of the Union address highlights discrepancies of everything from intellect to ideology within the United States government and the Pentagon. This concludes the Wire for 1730 Zulu, March 8th, 2024.